What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to take kind of a partial break from our NATT swap series with Matt's car right back here. So pretty much he dropped off his NA to get boosted, and we're working all the details out for that still. We just got our turbo shipped this way. That's been a big ordeal, but that's a whole nother story. That's for next video. This video, we're actually going to be doing some valve stem seals. So we actually seen in the exhaust ports that we had some like caked oil and just some wet spots in here. So that there tells me that we got some leakage going on. So pretty much we replaced all of them over here on this head already, so we can get the idea, you know, to relay it to you guys. Well, technically not. I actually recorded a full video and I went to edit it yesterday. It was 2 hours long and I'm like, no, this is gonna be a mess. It's gonna confuse you guys. So we're starting over and we're gonna do this side, this intake cam right here today. It is ideal, obviously, to pull both of them at the same time. So when you have one cylinder ready to work on, you can work on all four valves and you don't have to, you know, pressurize the cylinder or use the method we're going to show you to keep everything in one spot. And it's just much easier to do. We're going to go over removing the cams, taking everything out, tools, obviously, putting everything back in, a couple tips and tricks, and then torque sequence, putting it back on, torque specs, and a couple other things like RTVing your caps here on the front. That's a thing a lot of people don't do. Then they have problems and wonder why. We'll also show you the factory service manual so you guys can, you know, see what Nissan said to do. So stay tuned for that when it comes time to put everything back together. So for now, let's move on to the tools needed. Excuse my shop right now. I've got like 3 projects going on. We just moved into here and everything is everywhere. It's bad. I got a couple more boxes coming in and we're going to build some tool benches and stuff so we can organize a little bit better. So sorry for the eyesore. As far as the tools go, we've got us a JWT valve spring compressor tool. This is probably your most crucial thing. We've got our valve seals, obviously. And for those, I recommend grabbing this valve stem plier tool. So I'll put a link for this and these in the description. You're going to want a mallet to knock your front cam cap loose that is RTV'd. We've got a 27 mil and a breaker bar to turn our crank. And we've also got some picks for our keeper to help position them, because it is very tough to get down in here, like with your fingers and whatnot, especially to move something very small with a compressor tool in the way. We've got a flathead for the same reason, and we've got a magnet. This is to grab our keepers and to remove our hydraulic lifters. We've got a 16 mil socket, so that way we can remove spark plugs. We just got a normal ratchet with a 10 mil, and we also have a 1/4 inch drive, inch-pounds torque wrench. I recommend that because the torque spec's like 6 to 8 foot-pounds, and using a normal 3/8, that's so low on the torque range that you're not going to get a good reading on that. Last but not least, we have some rope or paracord that we're going to use to compress in the cylinder so we can keep the valves in position while we pull everything out and we change the seals. You also need a little bit of ultra gray for these cam caps on the end. And some oil so you can lubricate all these parts once you put them back in. No metal on metal anywhere is that good in the engine. Without further ado, let's grab some tools and begin removing our camshaft. Now I am going to say the #1 rule here for everything is to be clean and not introduce any debris or dust into any of this. When you go to torque your cams down, you start in the middle and you work your way out so you can evenly distribute the pressure here on this cam, because they are fragile because they're hardened. So basically we're going to do it backwards, and we're going to loosen the outside and work our way in. So that way we can evenly relieve the pressure on the cam and not snap it. You can get away with just yanking them off, but I'd rather not take the chance. What we're going to do here, the first time through, we're literally going to do 90 degrees, loosening it with the ratchet. We're just going to cycle all the way through, back and forth, kind of spiraling at the same time. Now that we did that, we're going to go back, start it again, but we're going to do a half turn. You can do another 1/4 before a half turn. I don't really find it super necessary, but half turn has done me well, and I've not broken any cams at this point. Now we'll go back and we'll do 1 full turn on each bolt. And usually by this point, after we're done with 1 full rotation, we'll be able to just use an impact, loosen it the rest of the way, or just use this Now you can just tell once your center one's loose, you know the whole cam's loose. So we're just going to loosen them all. Now that we have all of our caps loose, we're going to pull them all, keeping them in the same direction that we pull them off. And we're going to lay them down so that way we know where they go when we go to put them back on. They have to be the same direction. These are machined in the head. Here's where your mallet comes in. We're going to tap this cam cap, break it loose, separate that RTV, and then pull the cap off. Now we can remove our old brittle seal. Now we can remove our cam, and we're going to sit it down here so we know where it goes. Since it's on this side, it's going to be kind of hard to mess that up. But when it comes to removing this, you're obviously going to want to cock your cams all the way to the left or right, because at top dead center, when this pin's up, it's tensioned in the valves, and the driver's side isn't. It's at resting position at top dead center. So this side's going to snap, and you want to snap it before you remove it, or you're going to have pressure on your cam when you go to remove it, and you could snap it. Now if you have to use a mallet, grab the cam somewhere so when it comes loose that it doesn't come back down and hit anything. Now we have the hydraulic lifters exposed. So we have to remove these lifters to get down into the valve. So to remove those lifters, this is where your magnet comes into play. Put the magnet right on top and lift it out. Always put your hand under it because this thing can slide off the magnet, and if you ruin this, good luck. And we'll do the same thing to all of them. Now it's time for us to grab our spring compressor tool. When it comes to using this tool, I highly recommend that you lubricate this bucket before you put it in, and make sure that it's clean at the same time. So let's just put it in place. Now let's mount the spring compressor tool. You'll want to oil your threads just a little bit so it's not dry in here. So here I like to point the tool straight at the valve because you got like a little bit of room to rotate and push it inwards as well. While keeping that centered, we're going to tighten this bolt down and snug it to the head. Now we're going to remove our spark plug, and you want to make sure that there's nothing that's going to fall down in there before you remove it. So you want to ensure that everything is nice and clean. My little method, if a vacuum doesn't work, put a little bit of RTV on a flat head and use that the goop to pick it up. So we actually managed to use a pick to pull out some newspaper or napkin or something. So let's grab our deep well 16 or spark plug socket if you have it, and let's remove the spark plug. Not bad. Now we're going to take our paracord or rope, whatever you have. I got this paracord at Harbor Freight for like $2 for a 100-foot roll. But before we put the rope in, we need to check where the piston is in the stroke. As we can see right here, it's like at the top of the cylinder, and there's no way we're going to get any rope in there. We're going to take our 27 mil and our breaker bar, and we're going to rotate that until the screwdriver goes down to its lowest point, about right there. Now, pull the screwdriver. Now feed the rope into your cylinder. 10 foot of this paracord is perfect. That's enough to fill the cylinder or combustion chamber enough. Once you got enough rope fed down into your cylinder, you're going to kind of hold it there, or at least have something to keep it in place, and you're going to crank the engine back over, and you're going to compress all that rope into the cylinder. See, the engine just moved, so that tells me that we have compressed all the rope. Now we'll tighten the bolt to compress the valve, and you'll know once it goes far enough because the valve itself will pop and the keepers will come out. At least they'll unlatch. And if they don't, then you don't have enough rope compressed in the cylinder. And you just heard that. That was the keepers popping. And now we have access to grabbing with a magnet. So let's take our magnet, pick up our keepers. There's 2 in here, as you see. Let's loosen the valve spring compressor bolt and relieve the pressure on the valve. Once the pressure is relieved, you should be able to turn this by hand. Now I'm going to give you kind of like a little speed recommendation here. And basically that's if you want to do this fast, since there's 24 of these valves, the most efficient way I found is, since at this point when we have to remove this bracket anyways, to be able to pull the bucket out and then actually remove the top hat spring and then change the seal. What I recommend to speed things up a little bit after you get a couple done is just switch this over right now instead of sitting it on the bench somewhere so you don't have to worry about it getting dirty. Place this back in place and retighten your mount bolt. So basically this one's ready to go once this one is completely finished and changed and ready to be recompressed. That's just a little recommendation, so when you have to take this off anyways, you're at least putting it to use instead of putting it on the bench somewhere, you know. Hope that makes sense, but we're just gonna follow through with this one right here and give you guys a real in-depth diagnosis or explanation, I should say. Once both of those keepers are removed and your spring is decompressed, you can pull your top hat. It doesn't always come out. It should separate. It's just a little gummed up. Take the spring and set it to the side, keeping it clean. Now this portion is where our valve seal pliers come into play. Deep down there around that valve stem at the very bottom, you have a little seal. You can see it, the shoulder of it being kind of bumped out. That's what we're removing. This one will be a little tougher to show you. I can't put you straight up because I will punch you pulling this thing off. Basically just put your pliers in there, squeeze, crack it loose by twisting it because odds are thing's never been touched and it's probably 30 years old. Put your hand here at the bottom so you can grab it and pry up while you twist with the other hand. Just like that. Sometimes it wants to let go, sometimes it doesn't. And this is our old, nasty, crusty original seal that is hard as a rock. Now we got some just 2050 oil here, super thick right now out here in the cold. And all we're going to do with this is we're going to dip the top of this so the inside where it goes on the valve is lubricated. Once you have that little kind of bubble on top, insert it into your pliers. And we're actually going to dip this one last time so the bottom is fully coated where it seats on that little spot for the valve. To install, just going to twist it, pop it on, then we're going to walk it down. And as we grab, twist, and push, we're going to seat that seal against the head. Seal's replaced. Now we can officially start to reassemble everything. So 4 right now in the cylinder. Valve spring compressor tool is done. Let's grab our valve spring and our top hat. We're going to just coat the bottom of the spring with some oil so it's not metal on metal when it goes back. We're going to drop both of those down into the bore. Now we're going to reinstall our compressor tool. Center the tool, snug it down. Now let's compress the valve spring again. Be super careful not to lose these guys. And if you look closely, look how thick this top side is and how thin the bottom is. It's because it's tapered and it has to wedge down there to keep the valve into place. So this is the tricky part. If you got fat fingers like me, like that, I can't even put it down in this one. But we got it started, and this is where your picks or your screwdrivers come into play. You can use your pick to kind of move it around, get it where you want it. And if there's a certain side where the keeper likes to go in easier, what you can do is just rotate one keeper as it gets into the tough side. And then you can take your other keeper. So we're just going to move the keeper until it falls down into place. And once you see them both drop down past the top of the valve in the little valve relief that the keepers actually grab onto. Now we'll decompress the valve and let those keepers rise to hold into place. So now once our bolt is fully loose and we can hand thread it, let's remove the mount. We'll remove the mount, let's pull the bucket. And there's one last thing I like to do before I put the lifter in itself. Now all I'm doing here is I'm taking a socket and I'm putting it on top of the top hat for the valve, and I'm gonna hit it with a mallet so I can ensure that it's going to move back and forth freely, so we can make sure that that keeper is not bound between that top hat and the valve and it's actually locked in its correct position. Be careful when you do this not to hit your knuckles on any of these sharp edges. Very easy. Once you can hear it rebound a little bit, you're good to go. After tapping with the socket, I always give it a little wipe in here just to make sure, obviously with a clean rag. And now we can reinstall our lifter. When it comes to reinstalling your lifter, I like to dunk at least the bottom where you got a little ring around the bottom, so when you install it, that it coats the whole wall on its way down. And I also give the top of the lifter a wipe down and cleaning so we have no debris on it once we go to lay our cam on. Lint-free wipes are the best here. Yep, you got that right. Changing your valve stem seals is that easy. It just takes a lot of time because you have to do that 24 times. That's why I recommended that little 2-valve method there. But then again, as I stated previously, you want to try to keep it to the same cylinder so you don't have to take the time to compress this rope again twice. So pretty much you'd have to do that 12 times instead of 6, 1 time per cylinder. Before we install the cam, we're going to clean each journal and lifter, making sure the tops and pretty much the surface is all clean and free of debris. And then we'll go back for one final lubrication before we tighten the whole thing down. Now, here, before you put your caps on, do not just throw your caps in. What you need to do is take the bolt from your compressor tool, and you need to thread this bolt all the way down in each of these holes without the cap on. What this does is ensure there's no oil, which apparently this one right here has a little relief back here because I see it bubbling as I tighten this down. So you do not want to have these full, because when you go to tighten them down, you can't compress fluid. So here for your cam cap, you can see that little oil passageway line, and you see all this RTV over here on the side. You're going to want to clean up all that RTV and get it nice, bare, clean aluminum. We're also going to clean up all of this just before we put all the caps on, make it a little bit easier on ourselves. Before anything goes back on, once everything is confirmed clean, we're going to take some oil. We just washed our hands straight out the sink, so we know we're good. We're just going to give each of these journals a nice coat of oil, as well as the lifters. A little applicator brush would be ideal here if you don't want to get messy. We're always getting messy out here. What's the difference? Now all of our surfaces are lubed up. Now we just need to make sure that our cam is nice and clean. So again, before it goes in, especially make sure all your journals are clean. Most importantly, it's also good to clean and make sure your cam lobes are clean. I don't like fresh rags in any way, shape, or form. If I get them slightly coated with oil, they seem not to shed anymore. So that's usually my preference there. Now that the cam is ready to install, as it's all cleaned up, we want to orient this up here, straight up and down, kind of like this one, because this cam is at top dead center in the resting position too. So we're going to lay our cam, focusing the front, because you got this little spot that you can center it between, and that will line everything else up. Now we got it laid into place. Now it's time we can go to reinstall our cam caps. But before we do that, we're going to clean both of these little corners here off with some brake cleaner and a rag, so when we put this cap on with the RTV, that it's clean and ready to go. We're going to do the same thing here on the cam cap, making sure that it's all clean, dry, and oil free. You literally want the smallest amount here. We're just putting enough to where we can smear it and just coat this whole piece. So you really do not need much at all. In fact, we have too much, I'd say. With a clean, oil-free finger, we're just gonna smudge all that RTV on this little piece just to get it covered and take off any excess in the inside, but that doesn't matter because when we torque it down, we can wipe all of it out of the inside. Now, I like to just do a little wipe here at the oil line so we can ensure there's not too much over there ready to smush out. With a clean finger, lubricate the top portion, then we can set it into place. And we're pretty much just going to put each of our cam cap on, and we're just going to finger tighten it down to get it hand tight where it's snug, and then we can begin to torque it down. Evenly walk it down, finger tighten it where you have it evenly distributed between both sides. You don't want to work one side against each other, or else you can put one cam cap side down first before the other. You want it to stay as even as possible. And last but not least, now let's hand tighten them all down. Sorry we had a mishap on this side. I got to take that across mat, and I'm not sure how to go about that right now. This is totally loose, but I'm hitting the torque spec, even tightening this bolt down because the cam cap is swollen from overheating, and well, you can't even thread the bolt out. I'm pretty sure your torque spec's like 6.7 to 8.4 foot-pounds. So we have it right in the middle at 7.5. And then we're actually using inch pounds, so we're using a little bit of math to get our result. So we're going to take 7.5 by 12, because there's 12 inches in a foot, and that will give us 90 inch pounds to tighten these all down. The reason I don't like using my 3/8 for the actual foot pounds is because the rating's so low on here that you can't feel it when it clicks. So with this being like halfway through the rating, this is much better and more accurate to use. So you want to start here on your central cam cap, and you're going to work your way outwards. Now when I do this, I like to do it spiral like that. So we're going to start with a quarter turn. You can really start with like a half turn when you're doing it your first time, like snugging them down first. Since I did just loosen this to show you guys, it's going to be a little bit different, but same kind of thing. Just evenly walk your cam down. Right now we're doing a quarter turn exactly on each of these cam cap bolts. And that's so we can evenly distribute the pressure here, and we don't have to worry about snapping the cam with any unordinary pressures or anything. So now we're back in the middle. We've got our torque spec here to 90 inch-pounds, which is 7.5, because I want to stay in the middle. Don't want it too tight, and I don't want it too loose. So we're just going to tighten until the torque wrench clicks. Be easy when you're torquing it, because this torque spec comes very, very quickly. And my number one rule, as always, once you torque everything down in sequence, you always want to go back, check your torque, and make sure everything's even. Because when you do a sequence, you're not tightening everything exactly the same. You're doing it in different locations. So the first things that you tighten down will not be as tight as the last things that you tighten down. But in this case, we're good to go. Here's the page in the manual. Sorry about the light up here. I know I got lines and everything because of my new lights, but down here it says 6.7 to 8.7 foot-pounds for your cam caps. Here's the factory service manual portion on the cylinder head here. So sorry again about the lines, but hopefully that helps you guys out. Now I'm actually going out to buy a printer today so I can start printing off stuff like that to help you guys, see it better. And not only that, but there's tons of other little things that I can print off to show you guys, so I'm super stoked about that. Anyways, that's pretty much all there is to know about changing your valve stem seals. So we've got over half the engine done. We just started over here. Went to put this side back together. Had a little mishap. We got some tight caps. Just not a fan, so obviously we need to take that by the owner. I don't feel comfortable necessarily putting his motor back together like this and potentially having an issue down the road and him either having to bring it back or just be so sick of the car that, he doesn't want to mess with it again. So stay tuned if you guys want to know what happens next, and especially if you want to see the rest of this build continue. But for now, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys for watching, especially if you made it to the end, and I hope this video helps you guys out. The first video would have been really, really rough and crappy to watch, so I'm happy with how this one is. Hope you guys are too. If you haven't already, drop a like and subscribe down below. Stay tuned for the next video and help the channel out, help us grow, and help bump the algorithm. Until next time, peace out.